Almost 24 hours ago, there were some West Ham fans bemoaning the fact that we'd dropped 2 points at home against Bournemouth. A lot of these fans had forgotten that Bournemouth are currently one of the most informed teams in the Premier League at the moment, who hadn't lost a game in the last 6 or 7 games that they played. But almost 24 hours later, that point is very much welcome, especially after today's results, on Sunday's results, that both went in our favour. Welcome to the West Ham Voice. If you're new to this channel or if you've watched the channel before but yet to become a subscriber, a QR code has appeared in the top corner there. All you've got to do at the end, after this video is finished, is click on that QR code. It'll take you straight to the subscription page. You can become a subscriber of the channel free of charge. And if you enjoy the content, you can click the like button below the video, as well as the hype button, which allows other viewers to watch the video, so you're promoting it on my behalf. West Ham's draw against Bournemouth wasn't the result that many fans wanted. We walked away thinking, or some fans walked away thinking, that should have been 3 points. But football has a funny way of reframing things, and today's Premier League table has given us a bit of a different perspective on things. Tottenham Hotspur, they lost dramatically. Nottingham Forest, they lost even more dramatically. Both of them under new managers. Both of them hoping for that managerial, magical new manager bounce, but neither of them got it, especially in the Premier League. Now, suddenly, that point against Bournemouth looks a lot more valuable than it did 24 hours ago. Look, let's be honest. When the final whistle blew on Saturday, the mood was a little bit flat at the London Stadium. Great support, by the way. Yet again, the fans turned up in numbers, really supported the team throughout the whole game. But yeah, at the end, with a 0-0, it felt a little bit flat. Bournemouth is a home, at home is a fixture that you'd like to expect that we can win. Or should we be expecting that? We certainly created good chances. We had our moments, but it just didn't click the way we wanted. Fans, we're an emotional bunch, aren't we? And rightly so. We care. We want momentum. We want to see the team push on. And so when we don't get a win that we're hoping for or that we desperately need, we feel a little bit flat. But football isn't played in isolation. A point is never just a point on its own. It's a part of a bigger picture. And today, that picture has certainly shifted. Let's talk about the new manager bounce that everyone loves to mention. Tottenham brought in a new manager. Forest brought in a new manager. Both clubs expected that instant spark, the psychological lift that a new manager should be bringing, that tactical freshness, that little bit of, chaos that unsettles opponents. Forest got that bounce, didn't they, in Europe on Thursday? And some may say, and quite rightly so, that they were very, very unlucky against Liverpool, who got a last-minute winner today. I think the help of VAR, helped. Well, it helped immensely. But today, Arsenal put Spurs back in their place. Liverpool did the same to Forest, I guess, but Arsenal's 4-1 win away to Spurs certainly suggests that Igor Tudor, the new manager at Spurs, is going to find life in the Premier League a lot more difficult than maybe he might have realised. I wonder how now Forest feel, by the way. Having been beaten by a last-minute goal, how they must feel when a win or a draw seems to have been snatched away from them in much the same way that it was snatched away from us when we played against them. Snatched away from us several times against several teams. Today has given us a reminder, I guess, that the Premier League doesn't care about a narrative. It doesn't care about a new manager. It doesn't care about any football fans' optimism. The teams that go out there, whoever they're managed by, have got to go and earn the points that they play for. And West Ham earned a point yesterday against Bournemouth. It weren't glamorous. It wasn't, it wasn't fantastic, but it was a well-earned point. And now here's where things start to get interesting, because today's results, the results for Spurs and for Nottingham Forest, mean that we're 2 points behind Nottingham Forest. We're still 3 goals behind them, but only 3 now. It was a much, much bigger margin only a few weeks back. And we're only 4 points behind Tottenham Hotspur. So let that sink in for a moment. That point that everyone was moaning about on Saturday evening has actually proved to be invaluable. A win yesterday would, of course, been lovely. Absolutely. But the point is, we did, we got a point, and that's kept us in the mix. It's kept us within touch and distance. It's kept the pressure on the other teams around us. And in the grand scheme of things, you realize that a point really matters. The point that keeps us going, the point that keeps us competitive. Now, getting a point at home against Bournemouth isn't lowering our standards. It's not that we're celebrating like mediocrity. And it certainly ain't pretending that things are better. We're still in the relegation zone, but it keeps us in the race to get out of that relegation zone. It keeps momentum going. I was a little bit worried. I did say after the game yesterday that perhaps, although it seemed to be a wise thing to do to not play a lot of players, first choice players in the game against Burton. I just wonder in hindsight that maybe keeping the momentum going might have been better. At least play half a dozen of them so that they have that winning mentality. But it is what it is. We still haven't lost the game. It gives us something to build on. And the results that went our way today has amplified its value, that 1 point that we got. Now, with Spurs slipping, Forest slipping, and the so-called new manager bounce failing to materialise, the pressure really shifts. It really is on Nottingham Forest and Tottenham Hotspur to keep going. Suddenly, they're the ones that are looking over their shoulders. They're the ones who have dropped points. They have dropped points. They both lost today. They're the ones who have failed to capitalise on the draw that we got. Team selection for West Ham. I was pleasantly surprised that Nuno resisted the temptation to go with 5 at the back. But the fans were still complaining because they wanted 2 strikers to start. I get that. But how could we have 2 strikers starting when we knew that we needed a striker coming on from the bench at some stage? So the starting lineup with Magassa coming in for the injured Pablo and the suspended Potts was fine for me. I thought it was all right. Magassa, how did he play? It took him a while to get into the game. He grew into it. He got better. But he was still a little bit sort of rusty in some parts. Now, look, with Todibo back, he's rightly got to bide his time to get back into this starting lineup because, he's either got to wait for an injury or a loss of form from either Disasi or Dinos to get back into the team. Look, I dare say we might see something different against Liverpool next weekend. He might come back in and then maybe a 3 at the back. It's quite possible. Would I mind that? Yes, I would. But no, I wouldn't. Liverpool didn't look great against Nottingham Forest today, to be quite honest with you. So I think we should go there confidently and resist playing the 5 at the back. But I can see that being a possibility. Look, the game itself, the first half against Bournemouth on Saturday, there was nothing to write home about. 2 teams cancelling each other out more or less throughout the whole game. But the last 5 games between these 2 teams have all ended in draws. I didn't know that. I should have known that before I actually did the show the other day when I talked about these 2 teams. So I guess we should have seen that coming. But what I didn't figure was that it was going to be a goalless draw. I can't remember the last time we had a goalless draw against Bournemouth. But there's no doubt we did start the better of the 2. Within the first few minutes, we had a corner and Disasi could have scored his first goal for the club. Almost immediately after that, some wonderful play. Saw Castellanos put a great ball into the box, only for Somerville to flick it, which made it quite easy for the keeper to save. If he maybe just allowed it to drift across his body and maybe hit it with his left foot, but it seemed he maybe wasn't that confident to hit it with his left. But given the way he's been playing of late, if I was Somerville, I would have tried that because the flick just didn't work. Look, we were in Bournemouth's faces and they didn't look altogether comfortable in those opening minutes, but Bournemouth settled and the first half kind of fizzled out. In the second half, they settled a lot more. And then Ryan, of course, he had his chance, their young Brazilian. Great run. And no one seemed to be wanting to close him down. They were scared to touch him. And then the strike he hit, which hit the outside of the post, came as a quite kind of a relief. But that, in a way, was their best chance. Wilson came on in the 70th minute, almost scored with his first touch. And this is the other thing that people were complaining about, fans were complaining about. It's like, we didn't go for it, and Nuno bottled it. But people, he had 2 strikers on for the last 20 minutes of the game. He brought on another striker. He didn't replace Castellanos with Wilson. He kept Castellanos on. So we were going for it, but just things weren't falling for us. Simple as that. Sometimes you get games like that. But as the game wore on, it seemed that Bournemouth themselves were happier with the point than we were. Given the kind of substitutions that they were making, they seemed to be going for the safety, like playing for the point. And then, of course, we had a moment right at the end, didn't we, where Bowen, he had a great chance. I don't know what happened. He took his eye off the ball for a split second. Initially, I thought he stumped the floor. I thought he hit the ground as well as the ball at the same time. But it seemed that he had quite a clear shot with his right foot. You know, okay, it's not his natural foot, but we've seen him score plenty of goals. But he skied it. Look, we could have won. We were compact. We were solid. We had good chances. But a point is a good result. Let's be really honest. We had, 43% possession. All right. You know, given that Nuno's trying to play on the counter-attack, 43% possession is not that bad, really, even though it was at home. We had 20 shots. They only had 10. Our 3 on target were more dangerous than the 5 that they had on target. The 5 shots that they had seemed to not really trouble Hermansen in too much. We had 35 touches in their 18-yard box, double what they had. But we just didn't have our scoring boots on. You know, that was the only thing. So, yeah, a win. Of course, it would have been better. No one's denying that. But I guess when the dust is settling and we see the results that have happened throughout the Premier League over the weekend, I think we can say with confidence that we respect the point, we take the point, and we move on. Because, you know, now, as we're going into the last 11 odd games of the season, like I said, I think the teams above us are going to be looking over their shoulders far more. Look, we haven't got an easy run. We've got Fulham away. They're not easy. We've got Liverpool next weekend away. We've got Man City to come, etc. You know, the games are not easy. But then I look at what Spurs and what Nottingham Forest have got, and they're not much easier for them either. Keep faith. It's going to be right to the wire. It could actually go right to the last game of the season. Imagine that game against Leeds United, the last game of the season, to stay up. At least it's exciting. Not in a great way, but at least it's exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Do subscribe, and I will see you all again on the Monday night show. West Ham Weekly on Monday night.